Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
What was happening that day. So I had just read this wonderful statement about enlightenment being everywhere, and then I went and watched the news. And so what was the news of the day was one of the heads of Hamas had been murdered through bombing, and let's see, the bombing that was going on between Lebanon and Israel, and pictures from the Gaza Strip where there's not enough space for people, it's extremely overcrowded, there's not enough food, water, medication, latrines, etc. And then the last story that I saw, and their faces says it all. The last program that I saw was, or the last news thing was about another school shooting where one kid was killed and 5 were wounded. And then I went back to the article and said, really? So, yeah, we see so many horrible things that are happening, and they're so far beyond us. And so, in the article, she says that enlightenment, that Buddhism makes enlightenment is the promise of Buddhism. And she talks about how there's the flame that has come back from the beginning to, a millennia, where people who have been struggling and suffering, just as we do now, passed this flame on of the teachings. So it was the struggles and suffering, and it was the beauty. It was also the beauty, the wonderful things that happen, the child laughing, the sunshine, the flowers. It's both of those things that created the flame to move from generation to generation. And that brought all sorts of practices that support us on the path. And people passed these practices hand to hand to hand, encouraging one another to take part in awakening of our world and for ourselves, for both, for the whole world. So, the story behind the flame. Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? Enlightenment is true nature. It's true nature, and it's our home. And the complexities, there's the word, complexities of our human life make us forget. They make us forget. And so, consequently, we develop structures of habit, of conviction, of strategies to use in our life to defend ourselves from the desolation that you feel when you watch the news. The good news is that we have these structures, but they're not real. The reality that we're seeing is not real. These habits actually exclude or obscure our capacity to see enlightenment is everywhere. So we have to dismantle them. That's what we do, right? We work on that. We work on those habits. We notice what we do and we sit with them. Give you an example. Easy. With my mother. We're doing pretty good, but all of a sudden I see it. It's coming. The anger's building up in her. And my immediate reaction is, how am I gonna fix this? Which never works. But for some reason, I can't tell you why, I looked from a bigger container and I just watched her. And it rose and fell away. Enlightenment is everywhere. So there's this constant push and pull that we have. There's the push of it's a push and pull towards enlightenment, actually. It's the push of our own pain and the pain that we see in the world around us all the time. It's the pull by the glimpses that we have of something larger and truer than our ordinary self-oriented ways of experiencing life. Buddhism says, yes, we understand that. And there are ways to make these glimpses, these occasions, occur not by chance, not just by random chance, but so that they'll be consistently present all the time. That's part of the promise. One of the key ways is to make ourselves available. Make ourselves available all day to the grace we long to be touched by, and spread that grace to the world around us. That is the Bodhisattva vow. Is to be with it and spread it around. So, to be clear, enlightenment comes from the word Bodhi, which more literally means awakening. So you have awakening and enlightenment, and they're just two aspects of the same thing. The word enlightenment sounds very static. Oh, enlightenment, you have enlightenment. It's this thing, right? But in reality, it's very dynamic. In fact, the way things are is enlightenment. And how we experience the way they are the same enlightenment. So, it is the vast, inspiring nature of the universe itself. And the way we think, feel, and act, here's the caveat, when we're aware of and participating in that vast enlightenment manifesting as us. That's the awareness that makes it difference. So, what does that mean? So it means that it's the ordinary way that we experience life, in addition to an awareness of how everything interpermeates everything else. And that even the most difficult things are lit from within by the same undivided light. That is how enlightenment is everywhere. That is how enlightenment is everywhere. An example, this article is great, you guys gotta read it. You probably only have to after I finish. Anyway, he gives an example of this. It's a story about Tolstoy and Chekhov. They're walking together in a meadow. It's spring morning. And they see a horse. And so Tolstoy begins to describe how the horse experiences clouds and trees and the brook, the water, the flowers, and the sun. And Chekhov says, you must have been a horse in another lifetime. And Tolstoy says, no. The day I came across my inside, I came across everybody's inside. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So revelations, we had the idea of, we have enlightenment, and then we have revelations of enlightenment, which are part of the process of awakening. There are many stages and aspects of these revelations. And it's curious that people can have revelations of enlightenment, and those same people can also act very badly. So what's going on with that? Well, a revelation is not the same as enlightenment itself. And what can happen is when people have revelations, they take it into themselves and they get stuck there instead of moving along, which part of that has to do with embodiment. So, but the one thing is clear is what we awaken to is the same, all of us. How we awaken and how we express our awakening in our lives is particular. It's idiosyncratic to the person. So, as I said, enlightenment and awakening are two aspects of the same thing. Enlightenment is like a wave coming toward us. And awakening arises within us to prepare for and meet the grace of enlightenment and to hold it once it has come. Awakening is not, or is different from a self-improvement project or being a better person. It's rather discovering true self. It's discovering that light within. So the revelation has to do more than just run through us. It has to stain and dye us completely in the midst of daily life. So we let life teach us how to embody the revelation. This awakening can't be obtained or attained. It is autonomous. It exists before humans were ever here. It is less actualization and more a matter of truing, as I said, and being aware of how things already are and becoming aware of the permeability of the self and the way we are continuous with awakening. It's true that sometimes things will stay, and after having a revelation, delusions are less likely to, you're less likely to believe them. You're a little bit more, much more suspicious of them, and more aware of them. And you're more likely to recognize them for what they are and explore them without getting tangled up in them. But what we often do is sort through our thoughts, and we put them in piles of this is enlightenment and this is delusions, and going back into that. But that's not where it is. The idea is to get underneath the self-orientation of sorting, the duality, and go back to where thoughts are rising and falling before we start saying, and holding on to them. So awareness doesn't save us from the shared experience of humanity, of human life, but it can transform how we take part in them. So we're still going to die. That stuff is still going to happen. But the key is how we take part in them and how we see them. It means letting something speak to us without interrupting it with our habits of exile. So, how do we let things come in without saying it, before grasping on it? So the important thing, many important things, but is we can make a difference. We can have the possibility of enlightenment by working with our habits, by working with our convictions. And that's our practice, right? Pay attention to that. But part of getting back to the revelation is enlightenment is never complete until it's brought into the world. It goes back to the Bodhisattva's vow. The Bodhisattva, what is that? It's to save all living beings, not just ourselves. So as long as we hold any revelation that we might have, any sort of awakening we have as mine, or something special, it stays in the frozen cave, the cave of ghosts. And the way to get out of that is to turn toward embodiment, the embodiment of enlightenment, whatever that looks like for any individual person. It's the coming back to the world and saving others. However we do that, however we choose to do that. So, I'm going to kind of put that together and then stop. Enlightenment is everywhere. There's lots of horrible things in this world. There's always light in everything. Deep down, there's light. It may not be shown. We can shine our light, have our light shine more the more we practice and address when we're not seeing things as they really are. When we start to see things as they really are, and this is the essential part, is the permeation between us and everything else. Seeing that, being open to that, being quiet. And also, what I didn't address was, what do we do with this stuff? What do we do with this stuff, the wars? And these are the things that we cannot answer. There are so many things that we, just as human beings, cannot answer. Questions that have no answer. And our job is to hold them, hold them close. And know that they are unknowable. To be with our struggles. To be in the world is to be with struggle, to be with suffering. To be in the world is to be with struggle and suffering. But it doesn't end there. We don't have to. We can work on seeing things as they really are, and seeing the enlightenment and offering it as we see it, express it, and offer it back to the rest of the world. So, I've said enough right now. Thank you. If anybody has any questions or comments, you're welcome to present them.
I have a question, Laurie. When you say see things as they really are, and in the context of bad things happening, are you saying see the essential Buddha nature of everyone, even those who are doing bad things, or is it something else?
that's part of it. That's part of it. And it's seeing the emptiness of it, and I don't like. That's one way of seeing it too. That it's all empty, but it's more seeing seeing that situation, those people as they are also have Buddha nature, and they're totally not aware of it while they're doing these things. It's about finding the compassion. And that is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would say it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's for me.
Hi, Laurie, thank you. It's a beautiful presentation, and I'd love to read the article. One thing that it reminds me of in terms of how do we find compassion for those who are so hurtful and harmful. And the Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, Call Me by My True Names, where he says, I am the girl who jumps out of the boat because she's either been raped or escaping rape. And I am the pirate who did it, who has not yet known how to, and I forget, maybe something not yet known how to express his suffering, or something like this. So I am also the wrongdoer who is not there yet.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, getting in touch with our own aggression when we see bad actors, because we all have it to some extent. And then I don't know if this was a way to sort of offer something when you're experiencing something. So lately, I have been using with a child part that's suffering. This is an overburdened child, okay, part. And I've been using a grandmother role for myself. So more taking a step back so that I can soothe and comfort. And then I said, well, to widen this out, I can think of all of the children who are overburdened. And then, speaking of the news, there are these immigrant children who are working. There's a child labor problem with all these immigrant children. There was a wonderful report on it, and you're watching them with video, fixing roofs and dying and falling, so I was thinking of them, and it was just a way of, this is, bigger than my child part, and having compassion for it all,
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to say something too, that in the midst of all this horror that is happening in various places, it's so bizarre. The light shines through at times. And I was thinking of this incredible scene that was shown. It's been quite a while now, maybe, I don't know, 6 months, something like that. And it was in Ukraine. And I guess the battle was over. It was in a city in Ukraine. And the Russians were being captured. And the women of the town came out and fed them, and were so, so kind, gave them water and so forth. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like compassionate, just fighting with the guy, with their men. So, that's the light that comes up, and you see that kind of thing all the time. Well, not all the time, but often, in the most awful situation, someone appears and turns it completely around, turns it on its head, brings love into it.
Well, I mean, maybe suffering is the road to compassion in a way. It brings it out.
Yeah, I think it is. It's kind of like the yin and yang. You don't have, you have to have one side or the other. And you're not gonna there's no room for enlightenment, there's no room for change if there's not, there's what counts. Anyone else?